Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to talk to you guys about doing full range of motion and why it's important for all the various elements of fitness. And I think it's an important topic when we see so many fitness YouTubers out there performing partial reps on different exercises or doing things to cut the range of motion out. And I understand that for powerlifting purposes, for competitive powerlifting, to move more weight in a competitive environment, that it is beneficial to trim the range of motion down, to remove the weakest parts of the range of motion to allow you to lift more weight, but it doesn't necessarily make you stronger. And the various components of fitness are going to be gaining muscle, gaining strength, flexibility, stamina, or cardiovascular capacity, and injury prevention. Those are the elements of fitness that you train to improve. Well, increasing range of motion or doing full range of motion is important for 5 out of those 4, everything but endurance and cardiovascular capacity. It's not going to necessarily do a lot for that. But for example, let's say we're going to use the bicep because this is a single joint, just the elbow joint. With this, if I am doing curls and I'm coming up to here and only coming down to here, I'm not doing the full range of motion. I'm skipping the bottom. A lot of guys do that because it lets them lift a heavier dumbbell. But the bicep is not working harder with a heavier weight. They can argue all day long about, well, I'm holding a bigger weight at peak contraction, getting different fibers. Not really, because you have the easiest leverages there. The further you get down and extend down, the more difficult it is to get the weight started, the more muscle fibers that have to be recruited. So actually, even though you have the capacity for more max fibers due to it being bunched up at the top, in terms of getting those deep underlying fibers, the bottom is going to be possibly more important for that in many cases, depending upon which muscle fibers you're trying to recruit. So by skipping the bottom, you're actually shortchanging yourself some of the higher threshold muscle fibers, because those are the ones that are going to have to work to get the weight started out of the bottom at the hardest point, because the bottom is oftentimes the hardest point of any movement. You're at the worst leverages in terms of the joint down there. So in terms of total muscle fiber recruitment, which is going to be important for hypertrophy, you're losing that. Now for strength itself, the thing to remember is that strength carries through a joint angle only about 15 degrees. So if you stop 20 degrees from the bottom, you're not getting strength at the last 5 degrees. Your maximum strength, the majority of it only carries over 15 degrees in a joint angle in which you train it. So if you don't train the last 20 degrees in any joint, you're getting very, very little strength improvement at the very end of it. That could affect your performance in anything that you do in life, whether picking up a heavy object or competing in a sport or a life and death struggle or just moving furniture around your house. You're going to have weak angles in your normal range of motion as a result of that. They're just going to be weaker than they should be compared to the rest of your performance. When it comes to flexibility, it's the same thing. When you train joints under load to not move through a full range of motion, you reduce overall mobility. Things like muscles tend to shorten up a little bit to some extent. You don't get the joints as healthy as you need, because by putting a load under a joint through the full range of motion, you strengthen the joint more. So having weaker joints can actually affect flexibility, mobility, things like that. So partial movements can actually reduce flexibility and mobility, whereas in doing everything through a full range of motion can actually make you more flexible. And then finally, by doing things again through a full range of motion, you have better mobility, you have stronger joints. You don't have weak links in the strength of range of motion to where weight can just give out on you as quickly to where you tend to pull something or get hurt or get injured. So by addressing all of those components, by doing things through a longer range of motion, you reduce injury prevention. So full range of motion is important for 4 different components of fitness, and it's something that people need to consider when they're training. And the only exception might be the shoulder joint. There are certain, because the shoulder joint is so complex, it is capable of ranges of motion that you may not always want to train under, again, due for injury reasons and inflammation of connective tissue. But pretty much every other joint in the body, you're going to want to train it through the fullest range of motion possible if you want all of those other goals to be hit. And the only reason to really do partials, heavy partials, is for a sport-specific training reason in which you need extra power starting at a certain point through a range of motion that you're training as a weak link. But that is very sport-specific training and specific to an individual's needs. It's not something that the majority of people necessarily need to ever do. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.